What's up, military millionaires? I'm your host, David Perret, and today we have Carl Millsapp, a 8-year Army veteran captain in the armor side who, he got into real estate, and now he is, we're here to talk about how to help other people get into real estate and figure out what they want to do with their life and chase their dreams. So, Carl, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and for those of you who would normally be watching this on YouTube, the reason the video is going to be off is because if you were to see it, it would look like I'm interrogating Carl because his lighting is a window behind him and he is a black silhouette, and it's pretty funny, but probably not the most conducive to YouTube.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm in my makeshift office. Got a big renovation project going on, and so this was going to be I had to put a sign on the door for my guys not to knock or enter because they're in and out constantly to get supplies all day and ask questions. And so, so this is the best I could do for right now.
I love it. Well, as long as, if you notice the good cop, bad cop come out, then you just calm me down and be like, it's not a real interrogation and we'll just move on. So, so Carl, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? How'd you get started in all this?
Yeah. So, probably we'll say July, August of 2002, I was getting ready to pin captain. And, I was in the Army. I was an armor officer, had been a scout in second ACR all of my time up to that point. And I was having a discussion with my father, and I was telling him, hey, I'm going to pin captain sometime October, November, off to the career course. I want to command at 1st Cav. Like I was lining out what I wanted to do and what I would need to do to become a general officer. And so my father, as we're having this discussion, he just listens to me. And then after I mapped out my career plan and what I wanted to be, general officer, so on and so forth, he says, hey, man, I have no doubt you could be a general officer in the Army if that's what you decide to do. He said, but I'd hate for you to spend 20 or 30 years in the Army and never pursue your dream of owning your own business. He said, ever since you were a kid, you've always wanted to own your own business. He said, so I'd hate for you to retire and then regret that you never lived that dream. So I said, okay, I gave that some thought. And then I decided based on that conversation, you know what? I want to do company command because at the time I was a first lieutenant and I was second in command of a troop. And I enjoyed that time. So I said, well, I want to get my own command time and I'll exit the Army after that. So, I took an assignment, worked at Central Command for a while, did a deployment, came back for the career course and here at Fort Knox. And while I was in the career course, I got hit by a car on my motorcycle. And my original goal was to go to Fort Hood and command in 1st Cav Division. But I got hit by the car, had some back injuries. And so I took an assignment here at the training brigade where they train basic training soldiers and AIT soldiers for tanks here in the training brigade. And while I was here, I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start investing in real estate. So I found me a mentor, Mr. McKinney, who to this day is still my mentor. I mean, I've bought every property I have except for one through him. But I've been investing, got out of the Army in, let's say, June 2006, 2007. I actually opened up a 24-hour gym franchise. So even when I got out of the Army, I started investing in real estate while I was in command. But when it was time for me to get out of the Army after I did that command time, I decided, hey, I'm going to open my own business. So did a little research, decided to open up a 24-hour gym franchise. And I opened that in October of 2007. I closed it in December of 21. So owned that business and enjoyed it. But again, another crossroad, I was in a mastermind in, let's say, 2017, 2018 with this guy named Pat Rigsby. And Pat works with fitness professionals. He works with a lot of people, but he works with fitness professionals because he owned gyms as well. And he had this thing about, and you may have experienced this, David, that as a business owner, you tend to revolve around your business doesn't generally revolve around you. And so he had this thing, Pat built this thing about building your ideal business where your business should support the lifestyle you want. Your lifestyle should not revolve around the business. I mean, I put in countless hours building that gym and building the staff. And, we enjoyed the fruits of that labor, but it was just a never ending cycle. But so we're sitting in a mastermind. I'm sitting in this mastermind with a bunch of other gym owners. And Pat says, hey, design your ideal business. What does that look like? And he let us branch off for about 45 minutes or so. And everybody's coming up with their ideal business and, what it looks like. And it hit me. I didn't want to be in the gym business anymore. And so I said, man, so when he came around and asked everybody to describe their ideal business, I said, my ideal business isn't owning a gym anymore. And so I knew my franchise agreement would be coming to an end in 2022. So I set a goal to increase. At that time, I may have had, let's say, 10 properties. So I decided to set a goal to, increase my real estate holdings so that when I exited my fitness franchise, my family didn't miss a beat, everything would be in line. So then I just had to convince my wife that that's what, the way to go. So here I am today, living my dream, the second part of it.
Man, that's awesome. I'd be curious to know. I don't know anything about the fitness industry or running a 24-hour fitness. I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about that. But what's next? What's the big? I mean, we've done real estate, we've done 24-hour fitness. We're moving along. What's the next big project?
Yeah. So interesting thing is my goal is to have 300 doors. I'm currently sitting at 206.
Wow.
So, and that's been in a short period. Like I said, in 2017, 2018, I think I had maybe 10 doors.
Jeez.
But then Mr. McKinney, the guy I talked about earlier, this is where having the right people around you and having a vision comes into play. So I set a goal, I think, let's say it was 2018. I said, next year I want to have 2019, I want to add 5 doors. So I want to be, by the end of 2019, I want to have 15 doors. Well, I went the whole year 2018 and I couldn't get anything. And then sometime in August, September that year, Mr. McKinney called and said, hey, got an 8-plex. It's barely occupied, but, it's not listed yet, so on and so forth. So he told me the price on it. I would have to sell a couple units. And long story short, I sold 3 of my units. I added those 8. Well, guess what? It put me at 15, right where I wanted to be. And so I was like, man, that's interesting. I set a goal to get 15. I ended up right at 15. So I said, hey, let's go a little bigger. So now we're talking 2019, 2020. I said, I want to add 30 doors. So sure enough, by the end of 2020, I added 48 more doors. Right. So we had the whole pandemic during 2020.
And you were just buying them up.
Well, yeah, no, what happened was, and this is where, making yourself of value to people and having the right people in your life comes around. So I found an 8-plex. Remember, I said I've bought every property I own except for one through Mr. McKinney. So I bought the one 8-plex, another one. This is the second one I bought. I bought the first one through him that he mentioned. I found another one off market. I was in the process of buying that in 2020. And then when the pandemic hit, I can't sit around, right? I tried, I couldn't, and because the gym was shut down, hey, I'm home every day. So I told Mr. McKinney, hey, I'll come work for you because, he's a real estate broker. His office didn't close. So I went to go work for him and, a 40 unit that he was managing, he said the owner might be interested in selling it. And he made it happen for me, so that's where, I bought that 8 that I found off market, the 40 units, that 40 unit complex that he helped me get. And then the next year I was like, wow, okay, I wanted 30. I added 48. Next year, let's add 75. Let's see what it'll do. And by March of that year, I had 81 units under contract. Now, I only ended up with 53 because 28 of those just weren't worth having. So I ended up with 53. But okay, my goal is to get to 300. So I get that turned in 2021, spend most of my time renovating those units. And then I saw another complex and I told Mr. McKinney, hey, let's see if we can get the owner of that complex to sell to me 80 units. And Mr. McKinney made a call and hey, here I am. I'm one of the 80 units is where I'm sitting. uh,
That's cool.
Knee deep into renovation. So currently sitting at 206 with a goal of, I got to have 94 more before the end of this year. It's not looking good. It's October 26th, but hey, you got to stay focused on the goal and doors will open up.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you fall short of that, you've accomplished a ton. I mean, 200 doors in the last 2.5 years 3 years is nothing to poke a stick at or shake a stick at, right? Like that's a pretty solid accomplishment, especially it sounds like are you doing it, like are these all like solo, like just you, or do you have partners involved in any of this, or I mean that's a quick scale.
Yeah, so my wife and I, and then I brought in my parents. I brought in my parents on this deal and part of the deal for 53 units, just because, like you said, the capital needed to, so I brought my parents in on
Yeah,
the last two deals just
that's cool.
as partners. So, hey, my dad has always said, hey, I'll always help you if you're trying to do something, right?
Yeah,
But so hey, I
that's
presented
really
them.
cool to get involved with. People a lot of times it's like, oh, family, friends make everything more complicated. Like, yeah, there are times, but at the end of the day, I don't know. It's cool when like your parents, come along and support you and join in on that, and also you can, drag them along on the financial independence journey of real estate. And then there's always the funny side where it's like, well, I know you're not going to screw me because I'm just going to get the money back in inheritance one way or the other.
Right, right. Well,
It's coming back to me.
well, yeah. So the interesting thing with that is, my dad and I are a lot alike. My dad always told me when I was a kid, it's like, hey, don't ask me to co-sign for anything because if the bank doesn't think you're worthy, then why should I? Right.
Mm.
Uh, and I thought that was kind of harsh, man. But I understand it. It's a business decision, right? Like, hey, and he also taught me that essentially, if you didn't have the money for something, and either you figure out how to get the money for it, or if you can't pay cash for it, you probably didn't need it to begin with.
Mm.
And so just kind of having that kind of background. So when I came to him, I still had to sit down and present the numbers and show him, he's a real estate guy. I think he has, my parents own 10 rental properties, as well, outside of the holdings that they have in partnership. But we also structured things in such a way that, I have controlling interest.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, so it's good to have them along and support, with my wife and everything and our son. It's good to have the family and I'm running the day-to-day operations. Parents are vacationing, enjoying retirement, and they'll, breeze through town and help out for, a couple of days here and there. And then they're off to the races again. So it's a good thing.
Man, I appreciate you mentioning that about the cosign thing because someone had asked me about that the other day, and I was like, oh man, I need to make a video about why you should never cosign, and I didn't make it, and so now I was reminded and wrote it down because I agree. It's like, okay, so obviously you're high risk, or you wouldn't have a problem getting financing from a bank, and now you're asking me to put my name on the line, but there's no reward. I'm not moving to the house. I'm not driving the car. Like, you're essentially asking me to risk everything with no upside. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Now I
no
will.
winning solution to that. I mean, there's a couple situations I think where it might make sense, but
No, I don't think I can't really think of a time when it makes sense. But here's the interesting thing. My dad preached that no cosign thing all my life, and so our son is 25, and I'll say probably about 2 years ago when he graduated college, he was looking at buying a rental property, and so he called the banker, and the banker said, "Hey, if you get your dad to co-sign, I'll do the deal for you." So my son called me all happy because, "Hey, Dad, I can get my first rental property. Just need you to co-sign." And the banker saying you'll only be on the line, once I get a good work history, so on and so forth. 1 year of payments, and then he'll drop you off as a co-signer. And I said, "Man, let's call your grandfather and see what the family line is on co-signing." And man, I'm talking about my dad wouldn't answer the phone. He didn't reply to text messages. And then when I did finally talk to him, he was like, "Hey man, why didn't you co-sign for my grandson?" I said, "What do you mean?
Oh,
You never co-signed for me." He said, "Yeah, that applies for you. But for my grandson, you do whatever he needs." And it's this whole battle thing about, whenever it comes to our son, my dad says, "Hey, I don't like the way you're treating my grandson." And I say, "Hey, I'm treating your grandson the way my father treated me."
yeah, that's funny.
So yeah, so it's this constant
Well, yeah,
cycle
because now
of
I'm not the risk. You're co-signing, not me.
right, exactly. Like nothing that applied to me growing up applies to his grandson.
I think
So
that's
it's
grandparents in general, though, because my parents, they were strict about a whole bunch of stuff growing up, and now it's like, you want some more candy, Jack? I'm like, come on, guys.
it's
He's got
exactly
enough
right.
candy. Stop spoiling him. But it's like that's what grandparents are for, right?
Yeah, for
My
sure,
old
for
my
sure.
oldest knows, like, even last night he's like, "Can we go to the facility?" He not asking to do anything bad. Him and his friend wanted to go hit balls in the batting cage, practice baseball, and but it's like 8 o'clock at night, and I'm like, dude, like I had went under anesthesia last night for like an endoscopy or whatever, so I was just not like legally allowed to drive. I felt fine, but I was, I'm not gonna mess with it. And my wife is exhausted, and Cody's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna call Grandpa then." I'm like, "Okay,
Right.
no, all
Yeah.
right," but it's funny. Anyway, we could go down the
Yeah. Yeah.
grandparenting rabbit hole. Um, that's really cool that you have that many doors, and it's just you, your wife, and your parents. Like that's quite the accomplishment. And I love the fact that you bought this 80 and you're renovating it. What like what kind of return do you think you're going to see as far as how much you're going to be able to raise rents on that thing?
Oh man. So on average, I'm raising the rents on the two bedrooms, 215 per door on a 2 bedroom, and
Nice.
about 155 on the 1 bedrooms.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's gonna work out. And
Yeah.
then here's the thing. Um, Funny story, and I know we don't want to talk a whole lot about the real estate, and we'll talk
Oh,
about the
we'll
gym
talk
as
about
well.
whatever we talk about. Yeah.
But I originally had this place under contract back in, I think, July of August last year, right? And so I get my two maintenance guys and our son to come out. We're going to do walkthroughs, and I've got these sheets with, hey, let's go through. We're going to ask these questions, and these are the things that we're looking for.
Smart.
And so going through the apartments, I got my son with me, and we're looking, and we knock on the door, and the tenant isn't there. And so we move on to the next apartment. We're on to the next building, and the tenant that we missed he comes and finds us, and he says, "Hey, you guys missed my apartment. Can you want to come back and do it?" So I give my son one of the sheets. "Hey, you know what to do. Go back in." So my son comes back and he goes, "Dad, you set me up." So what are you talking about? He said, "Dad, you set me up." I said, "Man, what are you talking about?" He said, "Dad, I get to this guy's apartment. He takes me into the bathroom. He has a bucket underneath the bathroom fan. This is how bad this place is. He shows me a video with fluid coming down out of the bathroom fan into the bucket. And this guy is living this way. And he says, "Well, how long has that been going on?" He said he's been asking them to fix it for 3 months and they won't
Ooh,
fix it. And,
no wonder
he
he
said
wanted to
it
show you the
finally,
place.
he said they finally stopped it. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So he says it finally stopped. And I said, "Well, what apartment is that?" And my son told me, and I said, well, remember the apartment where we went in and there was a young lady living there who had just moved in the night before. And when we asked her if she was having any problems, she said the toilet seat was loose. And I sent my son into that bathroom. I said, check the toilet seat. Well, the whole toilet was loose. It wasn't bolted down properly. So that's why the guy was having a problem. But yeah, so we've got a lot of work to do here. This is a heavy lift. I mean, we purchased it February 28th. Out of 80 units, I think we had 27 units vacant.
Wow.
So, it's a heavy lift, but one, Ford is about to put in a battery plant 15 minutes from this place.
Oh, beautiful.
And so, we've turned 18 units already. I've got a crew in right now turning another 14 for me. And then we're just continually, doing an assessment and changing the whole culture of this place, and so it'll be, the tenants who like what we're doing are enjoying it, and the tenants who don't like the rules and things that we've put in place are moving.
Yeah,
it's just a natural progression of things.
Hey, it's progress, path of progress.
Yeah. So
awesome.
it was a good purchase. It was a good purchase.
Yeah. All right, good deal. So let's get on to some of the exciting stuff. It was goals, right? That's what you wanted to chat about.
Yeah, goals and just encouraging people to follow their dreams, man. I think a lot of times when I encounter people, when I owned a gym, a couple of my clients were teachers for one of the high schools that wasn't too far from my gym. And so they invite me in to talk to the students, periodically. And so I'd go in, and whenever I talk to a group, I don't just talk, right? I try and make it more of an interaction. So, I'll ask a couple questions. And one of the things I normally, because these were generally going to be high school seniors, hey, who's going to college? Okay, what are you going to college for? And so I go around the room and everybody tell me what they're going to college for. And then, I'd break off to some kind of discussion, and then I'd circle back around. I say, okay, hey, if I'm going to pay for everything for the rest of your life financially, you don't have to worry about you don't have financial concerns. The car you want, the house, health insurance, everything is provided for. Okay. The only requirement I have is you have to get up and go to work doing something. What are you doing? And 99% of the time, the answer they gave was different than the reason they were going to college. And so then my question is, why are you going to college to be a criminal justice major if you really want to be an electrician, right? Yeah. And why are you going to school for pre-med or law or whatever when you really want to be a beautician, and so there's always, these things about, that's what everyone else is doing, or that's what my parents want, and so it's like, hey, it's your life. I think at 18, and that 18 may be a little young, that, we should tell our kids, hey, don't follow the traditional path of, it used to be go to high school, go to college, get a good job kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think it really should be go to high school. If you don't know what you want to do coming out of high school, or if you have a dream, whatever that dream is, if you want to be an actor, singer, whatever the case may be, chase that dream for 2 or 3 years. Because if the average person lives to be 75 years old, if I take 2 or 3 years to go try to be an actress, a singer, a plumber, whatever, and it doesn't work, I can still go to college, spend 4 years, and still walk out of there and be whatever the heck my fallback plan was, right? But at least I don't live life with the regret that I essentially followed the path, right? We talked about Dan Kennedy for a minute. Yeah. Dan Kennedy, we talked about this a little earlier, was, hey, the majority is always wrong, right? It's, hey, that path of, go to school, go to college, get a good job. There's no guarantee in the jobs anymore anyway, right? Yep. There's no pension plan for the most part. Even the military is moving away from a traditional pension plan and saying, hey, I don't, what is the military equivalent of a 401k?
TSP.
TSP, right. So they're phasing out the 20 and out and get a check for the rest of your life. The TSP is the introduction of that, right? So there is no guarantee. So if there's no guarantee, you might as well take your shot. You might as well go after whatever you really want to do in life. And if you really don't know what you want to do in life, take a year or two and figure that out. Now, you've got to work and be productive while you do that. You can't just sit at home on the couch while you try and figure it out.
True.
But
You actually have to go for it.
yeah, you actually have to go for it. And so that's kind of what my thing is, hey, I want to encourage people to just figure out what you really want to do in life and go after it. Life is too short. I mean, you've been in the military, you've seen a lot of things, you've experienced a lot of things, and it really helps put life in perspective that, man, life is short. I mean, I deployed, I've been hit twice on a motorcycle, I've had some serious injuries, so
Twice is once is bad enough.
Kentucky, man, Kentucky.
It's funny, not to derail this conversation, but the first property I ever bought, my lender told me not to use a VA loan because I could only use it once, which obviously is wrong. But so I used an FHA, and it was like $81,000 duplex. So it was like $3,500, cash to close. And I didn't have it. I had a negative net worth. I was broke. I was a stupid, I did all the normal military mistakes. The only reason I was able to afford the down payment is because I was sitting in a bar eating a cheeseburger, and the guy parked next to my Harley backed out and, smashed, like drove over my Harley, and then he was drunk. And so he came in and he's like, who owns this? And we go outside, and I'm like, the handlebars like bent around like a candy cane and stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, what do we do? And he's like, well, I own a car dealership, so I don't want this to go on the insurance. Here's a check. What's the Harley worth? And he just cut me a check for it. And then I sold the rest of the Harley back to Harley. And so I actually profited. And I sold the Harley for in two different sales, I guess, for more than what I paid for it after putting 12,000 miles on it. But just funny because it's like, I haven't actually been hit on a motorcycle, but I had a motorcycle totaled while I was not even on it. And that was how I afforded my first down payment.
Oh man, I love the ride, and yeah, in the 10 plus years that I rode, and that was probably my whole reason for wanting to go command at First Cav at Fort Hood, was so that the weather in my mind stayed pretty decent. I could ride my motorcycle year round. But yeah, I absolutely love the ride. But after my second accident, it was too hard. It would have been too hard to get back on the bike with my wife and son. It just been inconsiderate, right?
Yeah, for sure. So goals. I agree with you, and I actually love the idea of just chasing your dream for 2. It's like the people who travel the world for a year before going to college, take a year off, and I always tell people to join the military because I'm like, dude, if you don't know what you want to do, join the military, and then by the time you figure it out, you'll have a GI Bill. So whatever.
Yeah.
But that was when I was a recruiter. I used a very similar logic to people would come in and they'd be like, well, I've been thinking about the military. I'm 26 now and I just don't know. And I would just look at them and be like, okay, cool. Well, go sit down somewhere quiet. And for an hour, just think through the question, when I'm 80, will I ever say that I regret not joining the military? Or like, am I more likely to say that I regret joining? Or am I more likely to say that I regret never trying? Right. And like, you can kind of feel that almost instantly people have their answer. They're like, oh yeah, I'll probably never regret joining, even if I don't like it. I don't really know that I've ever run into a service member who joined the military, did their 4 years, said, this isn't for me, got out. And then 40 years down the road was like, I wish I'd never joined. There's plenty of people who say, it wasn't for me. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. But I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say they regret having done it. And so I try to live my life through that lens now. Like, will I regret not going for this? And you're absolutely right. If you go to school for something because that's what you're supposed to do and you never chase the thing that you've always wanted to do, then one day you're going to wake up and go, shit.
Yeah. It's having seen it, experienced it, right? It's like, okay, I enjoyed the Army. I never intended on doing 8 years, right?
Yeah.
I was going to do my 4. do my commitment and get out. Now I got in, I enjoyed it. It came easy to me. But that conversation with my dad was like, yeah, I've always wanted to own my own business, and I'd done a lot of things up until that point, selling t-shirts out of the trunk of my car, just a bunch of other things because, hey, I just like business. I just like hustling and controlling my own everything. Right. So, that's the thing is I just like to be able to control and determine, hey, what am I going to do today? What life looks like. And that's what the gym, having it after a while, it was very, I love my clients. I mean, I actually just, my wife and I attended the wedding of one of my clients on Sunday, this past Sunday.
That's cool.
And on Saturday, one of my former clients, his dad had a heart attack and he was rushing to the hospital to be with his dad. But the person he thought the call was me. And so I talked to him on his way, so I absolutely loved my clients and I enjoyed impacting people's lives, not just for the physical aspect of it, but also the emotional and mental side of it as well. And so it was just one of those things that I considered ministry as part of what I did. I'm very task oriented, very goal oriented. I write my goals down every day of what I need. I write my goals down every day for the year. And I've got 3 goals and I write them down every day. And then I write my to-do list of what I need to do. And a lot of times I'd come home from the gym. I'm like, man, it's a bad day. My wife was like, why? And I'm like, look at my list. I didn't get much of it done. And she'll say, well, how many clients did you talk to today? And I said, oh yeah, I talked to David, man. I spent doggone 45 minutes listening to this guy tell me about such and such, such and such. And, this is the advice I gave him. Or I didn't even give him advice. I just listened. And she said, well, babe, that in itself was productive because you helped him, and so having her help me shift my perspective of not just getting tasks done, but the impact of changing lives, not just physically, but across the spectrum in every aspect of their lives, helping people out with their marriages and things like that, that's where the true blessing, that's where the real work was being done. And so when I looked at it like that, it still didn't change the fact that I didn't get nothing done on my task list. Hey man, for my personality type, man, I've got to get stuff done, man. I've got, I've got to get stuff done.
So I haven't said this on the podcast yet, and there's not a whole lot of people who know this, but I'm actually in the process on the 3rd revision right now for building my own journal because I love like these 90-day intention planners. I used Brandon Turner's for 2-3 years. Then they were on back order for like 6 months. So I tried a different one, the Panda Planner. And I liked some parts of that and I didn't like other parts. And I tried a third one and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take the parts I love about all of these and build my own. And if anyone buys it, cool. But if not, I have my own. And it's exactly what I want. And so I've been working on that. And one of the things that I threw in there is, I think it's from Ed Milet, is where I originally heard it, I believe. But he just talks about win the day. And so I'm like you, where I will start the day and I will write out like 12 things. Be like, I got to do all these things. These are all my ideas. And then at the end of the day, if let's say I wrote 12 down and I got 10 done, I will look at the list and be like, oh, I didn't get to those 2 things. And so the win the day concept is like, let's say you write out 12 ideas, just choose 3. If you get those 3 done, then those were the most important or whatever. If you get those 3 done, then you call it a win. So if you get 3 done and that's it, you did it. If you get 4 done, that's great. That's a bonus. You can write all 12 out, but whatever ones you don't get done, you just roll to the next day. And for me, that little like change and just allowing myself to go, whew, I got these 3 things done. It's made such a difference because I was getting so burnt out by like staying in the office or coming home and being upset that I had gotten 10 out of 12 things done. And it's like, dude, you got 10 things done today. Give yourself a little grace. So I'm so bad about that. So yeah, I agree completely.
Well, it's interesting you say that, and I'm glad you said it because I transitioned to, I think, somewhere when I was in the mastermind with Pat Rigsby, I transitioned to, there was like, hey, what are the 3 things you need to do today that's going to move you closer to your goal?
Yep.
right? And then so that was the above the line stuff. And then there was the below the line stuff. But even below the line, it was kind of like you only needed three things, right? There was only three things you could put below the line. And if something got moved 2 or 3 days, like that task still wasn't a priority, didn't get done, then just drop it because it's really not that important. The fact that you keep moving it says it's not that important. So I actually need to go back to that planner because I have a planner that I created, kind of like you. I think I started with the Darren Hardy uh,
I forget what it's
best
called.
year ever book
Yeah.
kit, whatever. And I took part of that planner and combined with some other planners. And so I still use some kind of, like, I've got my goals for the year, top 3 goals for the month, top 3 goals for this week, 3 most important things for the week, wins, losses, fixes, aha moments, and then what I'm grateful for and what I learned. Kind of a planner is what
Yeah.
I'm doing. But I think when I changed, I missed that part. Like, hey, you're right. There's really only 2 or 3 things that I need to do that's going to move me closer to my goal. But yeah, when I'm dealing with all these tenants and maintenance guys and renovation crews, man, all of that's kind of like, hey, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. And so yeah, I'm just drowning in task right now.
Grab you got the tiger by the tail playing that game. Yeah. You're like, wait,
Yeah.
we said we were going to do this today. Well, yeah, boss, we know, but then we realized you have no insulation in your drywall, so we have to redo all your drywall. What? That wasn't on the plan. Well,
Right.
oh, and now that we're in your drywall, we realize that someone replaced one of your wires at one point with an electrical extension cord, and so we got to rewire this wall. And we need to make it 200 amp service because it's only 100 amps. Oh my gosh. The moment you
yeah.
start messing with renovations, it's like, wait, I was supposed to plan today? Nah, I'm not going to be able to stick to it. So let me just let them tell me what's going on.
Oh yeah. Nah, schedule of work is what we got going on around here, man.
That's funny.
Keeps the guys focused. Hopefully. In theory it does anyway.
It's a fun game for sure. Oh my goodness. Oh, I've got a big renovation that I'm so close to being finished on, and I'm like, oh my God, come on. Like, I just need to be able to breathe again, you know?
Oh yeah.
Anyway. So, all right, cool. I don't know. What do we miss? Is there anything we haven't covered yet that we should?
Yeah, let's I think on your one of the things talking about resources.
Yeah.
You know, it's when you look at resources and we're talking about really, hey, I want to not only do I want to figure out what I want to do in life, whatever my goal or dream is, how to do it. What is the primary resource that I could use to achieve that, or at least get me on the. And it's going to be funny because it's the DISC personality test. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but
I am a big fan. Yeah.
yeah. So when I was in another mastermind for sales professionals, right? And that was the crazy thing. When I was looking at businesses to get in, one of the things I wanted to avoid the most was anything that required sales.
Everything requires sales,
but everything requires sales, right? I'm like, oh man, 24-hour gym, people will just come in and they'll drive by, and if you build it, they'll come, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Right, man. Jeez, I'm sitting there like every day. It's like I got a script, man. Hey, let's talk. But anyways,
let's talk about why you're fat and how you need to come here to change it. Yeah,
yeah. So but my personality type, I'm a D, right? And so because I'm more goal oriented than people oriented, I had to figure out in order to be successful, right? I got to get up and go kill it every day if I want to eat. Right.
That's
so I got in this mastermind with a bunch of sales professionals, and one of the guys was he was a DISC, I'll say, guru. Right. So we spent probably 3 or 4 months going over the DISC personality test and, learning who we were and, all of that. But then we learned how to identify and connect with the other personalities. So it made it easier for me that when someone walked through the door, if I'm on the sales desk today, hey, these are my staff we had questions, right? And we tried to guide the conversation, but based on how people responded, it helped me identify quickly what their personality type was. And so then I knew how to adjust myself to them, right? And so then it made it easier to sell. And so, that's probably one of the biggest resources. Is the biggest thing you can do is you have to know yourself, right?
Yep.
Before I can worry about other people, I need to know who I am, how I think, why I think that way, and the disc personality kind of sum that all up. And so once I got a good picture of that, in addition to my wife telling me, right, um, but hey, this is what's going on. Then that kind of helped me figure out, okay, this is why I am driven the way I am. And so that would probably be the biggest thing is, learning yourself, however you do that. I recommend the disc personality, but
I agree.
It can be
and it's free.
A bunch of varied ways.
There's some really cool ones out there. And there's one, I'm drawing a blank on it, that's like the king of the castle for personality tests. It's like the only one that's been like approved by whatever scientific studies for whatever. But it isn't not cheap. It's the disc profile is phenomenal and free. And I'm a 99I and like a 60 or 70D and then like a 20, on the S&C. And so for anyone listening to this who doesn't know what that means that I'm really good at networking and connecting with people, but it also means that any and every time I go to make a decision, my brain goes to, well, what will other people think? Or how will this be perceived by others? Or do they like me? Do they not like me? And it wrecks me sometimes because I'm just like, man, how I feel, I have the innate ability to judge, like to see somebody's emotion and recognize it and be like, wow, yeah, which is great if things are going well. But the moment you're having a conversation with somebody and they just like tune out, I know it. And now I'm in my head and I'm like, oh no, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not enough? Which, come to think of it, I'm going to do all of my interviews with my guests blacked out because this is great. You could be like just miserable right now and I have no idea.
Hey, I'm here to help, man. I'm here to help. Right.
Oh yeah. No, the disc profile is awesome. So I definitely encourage anybody who's listening to this and hasn't taken it. It doesn't take very long, 20 minutes, maybe 30, but it'll give you just a ton of insight into who you are, how you operate, and like why you think the way that you do. But it'll also help you recognize some of those other traits so that as an I, if I'm going to have a conversation with Carl about something that he is doing right or wrong, he's a high D. So I can't go to him and be like, this is how people feel about the way that this is going. I need to just go to Carl and be like, yo, dude, you fucked this up, man. And vice versa. If I was to tell my assistant that, it would not go anywhere near as well as if I was to have an actual conversation. So
yes. No, it's funny, because I'm a D and I had one of the guys that, he's on one of the crews and they're doing renovations. And, I interact with the guys. I pop in and out of each apartment. I'm checking progress, so on and so forth. And so this one guy stops me and he goes, Carl, you don't like me very much, do you? I go, dude, I barely know you. I mean, wait, what makes you say that? He said, well, anytime I try to engage you, I could tell you don't want to be bothered. You don't want to talk. And I'm like, well, no, man, like, I've got, 15 units being renovated right now. I've got a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, I'd love to sit and just talk to you, but I just don't have time. Right. But, as a D, right, I'm very bottom line, hey, cut to the chase. Just tell me what the problem is so we can get to a solution so I can move on to the next task because I'm very task oriented. And so, yes, I have to make an effort to sit and have small talk and, those kind of things. But I can do it. I mean,
I need to make my wife take the damn test. Because we'll be like sitting watching a movie or at the rodeo or something, and by the end of it, it's like we spent 6 hours together, and I'm pissed, and I'm like, we didn't talk at all, and she's like, I had a great time just sitting with you, and I'm like, such different personality traits. Sometimes I'm like, what do you mean you had a great time sitting there? Like we didn't say a word to each other, and she's like, I know it was great. We just watched the rodeo together, and I'm like, okay, well, I misperceived this. I just assumed you were pissed at me.
Right.
Like, why
Right.
is she not talking to me?
Right. I'm thinking maybe your wife is a D or maybe a C.
Yeah, I think C is, yeah, she's definitely a C. But
Yeah. So
oh my
yeah,
god,
it's very interesting. Very interesting. But yeah,
I love
so
it.
yeah, it
Well,
just go ahead.
I was just going to ask where people can get a hold of you, Carl, if they want to reach out and ask some questions and maybe talk to you about why they don't know what to do with their life.
But David, we just talked about this, man. There is no way to get a hold of me.
Oh, that's
I
right.
don't have any social media, right? I don't. I
I
don't have a
forgot about that.
Facebook.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have Facebook. I don't have
you're right.
Instagram. I don't have. I had Twitter for a short amount of
Oh, I
time,
hate
but it took
Twitter.
up too much time,
I
right? I
hate
found
Twitter.
myself every time I sat down, I'm gonna open up to see what someone tweeted. Okay, well, it doesn't impact my life. Why am I reading this? So I got rid of Twitter. So I don't have any social media. The
Honestly, that's
website,
awesome.
yeah, I don't. You know, my kids, my youth group, and other youth groups that I'm involved with, they think it's bad. They're like, Mr. Carl, how do you not have like any social media? And I'm like, hey, while you're spending countless hours on social media,
Yep.
I'm getting stuff done, right?
And spending
So,
time with my family.
yeah, I don't need to watch people lie to me about their lives on Instagram and TikTok, and the vacations they're telling you they're doing. I'm going to do that. We took our son, my wife and I took our son to Italy when he was like 10. I think Miles was 10, but he's 10, right? So
Yeah.
we're walking around Italy and we're at the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and he's like, I'm so bored. And I'm like, dude, you are in the building that your friends are going to be reading about. Are
Yep.
you serious? Right. But he's 10. So why would
Yep.
I expect that he's going to have an appreciation for that?
Yeah.
And so, he's older now and he's off on his own. He's doing great things. So, um,
It's
you
so
know,
true though. It's funny. My buddy Brandon showed they were in Europe for like a month, him and his wife and both kids, and they were, all the pictures of all the cool things they're seeing. But then at one point he did a video, and it was a video of his son having just a complete meltdown, and he was like, I just want to show everybody, like, I'm missing this entire thing that I wanted to go see because I had to take my son outside and just let him rant and rave, and I'm missing the entire museum. So just so you all know, it's not always like the pictures show. And I was like, I appreciate the honesty because that is exactly how those trips usually end up going.
oh yeah. Nah, we got him to enjoy the trip. We rented bikes and rode around, and it was good. It was a reminder. Hey, don't take kids on trips at like of that magnitude at 10 or 12. Like wait
Yeah.
until they're older and they can truly appreciate it. So yeah.
I love it. Well, Carl, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else that you think this has been fun for me because we got to talk about real estate, but we got to talk about other stuff that is, like we said before recording. Sometimes I love real estate, but there's only so much I can talk about rent,
Yeah, no. I'll just leave with this. I looked as I was preparing for this at the very last email. I used to email my clients at the gym once a week.
Nice.
One of those connection things, but also one of those ways of, I had, let's say, 600, 700 clients. There's no way I can touch all of them, but I started sending a weekly email. Some of it was health and fitness related. Some of it was gym, just life related. And so I figured, hey, for those that I don't touch through the personal training program or boot camps or what have you, this will be giving me an opportunity. And so my very last email to them, I explained that, hey, uh, I kind of told them the story about my dad and the conversation with him. And so that's how I came to open that gym. And that now life was changing for me. And, I'm off chasing my next goal. And so here was the end of the email. The parting words of advice was one, have a vision for your life, develop goals and go after them. Two, make sure you have people around you who can tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to
Mm.
hear. And ensure those people have your best interests at heart. And when they tell you something, it's for your good. And then the third thing was find a coach, find a mentor, someone with a proven track record who has achieved what you're trying to do. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. One of
Yep.
the things I tell our son is, hey, you should be 10 steps ahead of where I was at your age. So he's 25 right now. So he should be 10 steps ahead of where I was at 25 because I've already lived 25. So he should not be experiencing the same things that I can just tell him, hey, dude, you don't want to do that. Right.
Yep.
And that should, put him a little further ahead.
No,
And then,
absolutely.
some mistakes he's going to make on his own. And there's nothing wrong with mistakes as long as you learn from them. But the fourth thing was, hey, don't settle. Life is short. Enjoy every day, make the most of it, and don't live with regrets. So that would be,
That's some good advice. And I especially like the piece of, finding somebody who's been where you want to go and using them for your, your proof source and your info. It always makes me laugh that people are like, I want to get into real estate investing. And then all these people who've never bought houses talk them out of it. And I'm like, bro, if you wanted to go be a quarterback, would you listen to Tom Brady or Tiger Woods? They're both very
right.
successful, but Tiger doesn't know shit about being a quarterback, so you probably ain't going to listen to him. And it's like, just because your parents have your best interest at heart or your girlfriend or whoever doesn't mean that they have the experience to know what they're talking about in that setting.
Yeah, no, valid point. My father used to tell me the same thing was, essentially, you can hear people's advice and experience on things, but whether they had a good experience or bad experience with this particular thing is based on the actions and the choices they made. And so you can't live your life based on those actions and choices because, and there's been things that people told me, hey, yeah, Carl, you may not want to do that. And I did it anyway. And I absolutely loved it. Right. But I would have missed out on that experience if I just went based on their experience. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
very
agree.
valid point.
Dude, this was good, man. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I thank you for the opportunity, and I wish you the best in this podcast. Like I said, I've listened to the episodes in preparation, and I think you're doing an outstanding job. I think you have a very good niche, and I think you'll do well with this.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you once again for joining us today.
All right, David. You have a good one, man.
You too.
Take care.